Dear friends, English literature, romantic poetry, William Wordsworth, selected poems, ode, intimations of immortality, brief questions with answers. Brief questions 15 to 45. Question 15. What is the definition of poetry according to William Wordsworth? Answer. Definition of poetry is given in the preface to the Lyrical Ballads. Wordsworth says that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Wordsworth ranks poetry as a deeply personal and emotional expression. He opines that poetry is born from strong emotions that cannot be repressed. These emotions overflow or express themselves spontaneously in the form of poetry. Question 16. What is the full title of Wordsworth's Immortality Ode? The full title of the poem is Ode, Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood. In short, it is called Ode, Intimations of Immortality. Question 17. What is the theme of the poem, Ode, Intimations of Immortality? Answer. The theme of the poem is the immortality of the human soul, of which one is ever in childhood, but which fades from one's mind with growing years. Question 18. How were the commonplace objects of nature to Wordsworth when he was just a child? Answer. When Wordsworth was just a child, the commonplace objects of nature appeared to him having a heavenly light or radiance. Question 19. What happens to the poet when he is a grown-up man? Answer. When Wordsworth is a grown-up man, he fails to see the heavenly radiance in the objects of nature. Question 20. Apparelled in celestial light. What is the significance of this phrase? Answer. The word apparel means dress, cloth, or a garment. When Wordsworth was a child, every object of nature was dressed with heavenly light, which is like a garment. When Wordsworth becomes grown up, the heavenly light is taken away from the objects of nature, just as a garment is taken off. Question 21. What does the phrase "the glory and the freshness of dream" mean? Answer. The phrase means that the objects of nature were wrapped in lifelike vividness and dreamlike splendor. Question 22. How is the rainbow when Wordsworth is a grown-up man? Answer. When Wordsworth becomes a grown-up man, the rainbow is still beautiful to him. He can see the picture of the formation of the rainbow and quick fading away in the sky. Question 23. How is the rose to the poet when he is a grown-up man? Answer. When he is a grown-up man, the rose is still beautiful to his eyes, but without heavenly glory. Question 24. How is the moon to the poet when he is a grown-up man? Answer. While the poet is a grown-up man, the moon still seems to be beautiful with all her divine glory shining in the cloudless sky. Question 25. How is the moon personified in the Immortality Ode? Answer. Here, the moon is personified having the quality of looking round her with delight. Question 26. How are the waters on a starry night? Answer. The term waters refers to the stream, the lake, the rivers. They appear beautiful and fascinating under the starlit sky. Question 27. Waters on a starry night are beautiful and fair. What does the phrase word refer to? Answer. Here the phrase waters on a starry night are beautiful and fair. Waters refers to the stream, the lake, and the river or any other watering place. Question 28. How is the sunshine to the poet when he is a grown-up man? Answer. While the poet is a grown-up man, the sunshine or the rising sun seems to him to signify the birth of this day. Question 29. What has vanished from the earth when the poet is a grown-up man? Answer. While the poet is a grown-up man, the heavenly glory has vanished from the earth. Question 30. What do the birds do when the poet is a grown-up man? Answer: the birds sing a song of deep pleasure when the poet becomes a grown-up man. Question 31. What do the young lambs do? Answer: the young lambs are running with jumping movements as if they were jumping to the sound of the tabor, a small drum. Question 32. What is a tabor? Answer: the tabor is a small drum. It was a circular frame covered with parchment, something like a small kettle drum, on which suspended round his neck. The player beat with a stick with one end, while with the other he held his pipe, to which the tabor formed a accompaniment. Question 33. How is the poet a contrast to the birds and lambs? Answer: the birds and lambs are in joyous mood, but the poet is overpowered by the thought of grief. Question 34. What relieved the poet of his thought of grief, depressed mood? Answer: a timely utterance of joy and utterance of joy of the shepherd boy relieved the poet of his thought of grief or depressed mood. Question 35. What kind of sound do the characters? I repeated. What kind of sound do the cataracts waterfalls make? Answer: the cataracts waterfalls make a sonorous sound, like the sound of a trumpet while they flow down the rocks. Question 36. What echoing sounds does the poet hear through the mountains? Answer: the poet hears the sound of animals, waterfalls, the murmuring of leaves, and songs of birds echoing through the mountains. Question 37. What is the mood of all the creatures on the land and in the sea? Answer: all the creatures are in a happy mood. They engage themselves in merrymaking. Question 38. What is the mood of the wild animals? Answer: the wild animals are with a heart of May, that is, in the spirit of spring season. Every wild animal indulges in sports of pleasure. Question 39. What does May stand for? Answer: May is the month of spring. It stands for the spring season in England. It is a month of beauty and merrymaking. Question 40. Who is the child of joy? Answer: the shepherd boy is the child of joy. He expresses his joy by shouting. Question 41. What does the poet request the shepherd boy and why? Answer: the poet requested the shepherd boy to shout around him so that he can hear his shouts and take part in his merrymaking. Question 42. Whom does the poet call blessed creatures? Answer: the poet calls the lambs and the shepherd boy blessed creatures. Question 43. Why does the poet call the lambs and the shepherd boy blessed creatures? Answer: the poet calls the lambs and the shepherd boy blessed creatures because he has seen them rejoicing together and the sky participating in their merrymaking. Question 44. What reminded the poet of his loss of vision of childhood? Answer: certain objects of nature, such as the tree, the bare field, and a particular flower, that is pansy, reminded the poet of his loss of the vision of childhood. Question 45. The babe leaps off on his mother's arm. What does the line signify? Answer: the line signifies the boisterous spirit and impetuous vitality of the child. The child is the symbol of creative strength. Thank you, friends, for watching my video.